Yay, we're live.
We're live.
We are live. Good evening, everybody. Very warm welcome to our Lyceum evening where we're having another Chesterfield chat. How wonderful is that? And we've got a wonderful gentleman who is the guest of the church this weekend, Mr. Ewan Irvine from Edinburgh. Ewan, sir.
Good evening. Yes, all the way from Edinburgh and in Poole.
And in sunny Poole.
In sunny Poole.
Yes, and how nice. Hang on, just 1 minute. Go ahead and share.
I'm not too sure what I'm doing.
Oh, well. We're just
working out technology.
Yeah, I've got no idea. Right.
I'll figure it out.
Yeah, you play with that. Don't give me anything
technology
more complicated than a Hoover. Ewan's just trying to work out how to share the video out. So if anyone's got any tips for that, please do. See, we've got a couple of people. Hello, Jen. Good evening, Phil. How are we? Jamie, back again. It's Jamie from the course today.
Hello.
So, topic of conversation tonight. We got that. This is sort of like spurred on. I had some memories come up on Facebook over the last couple of days, and one of them was my journey up to the Arthur Conan Doyle Centre to see you and the wonderful Frederick work, which is really odd because now, 2 weeks ago, Frederick was sat there, and now you're sat here. Yep. So it's just sort of like this wonderful synchronicity. But it does. I was stood outside the front of the church today, and a gentleman walked past and said hello, and I went hello, and thinking I have no idea who you are, but I'm just going to smile sweetly. And he said, I joined in on your carol singing when you were outside the church on Christmas Eve, and I thought, oh my goodness, the things we had to do in the COVID era. And it sort of brought forward a few more memories as well, because it was this time last year up in Scotland, we sort of had face mask ban, did we not? Because we had that very bizarre train journey that when we went through, I think it was Carlisle, we came then under Scottish law and we had to put our face masks on the train going up, and coming back after Carlisle, we were allowed to take, it was just one of those nonsense things. But anyway, it's the effect it's had on our movement.
Yes, the one thing I have noticed, and of course we have the power of the StreamYard, of Facebook, and of Zoom, but that kind of helped the movement in a way that it helped grow it and reach the movement to people that were in far-flung parts of the world, some in so remote places that there was no church beside them. And I think that was something that was very helpful and made us realise in many ways that we've got to reach different parts of the world, and everything is now becoming kind of hybrid events, and we're doing these quite a bit, and I think it's going to continue. I think there's that demand for it. So that's one thing where we've moved on, and even things like the circles. We're holding the circles online, the evenings of mediumship online.
Yeah.
And I know when we first started it up in Edinburgh, we kind of thought, and talk about Frederick was involved in that, and we thought 2-3 months, that'll be it.
Yeah.
And what are we on 3 years later?
Yeah.
So it's been quite a journey, and I think one that'll continue.
Very much so, very much. And there's some interesting side shoots to this. We had a wonderful workshop today here at Poole, courtesy of the lovely Ewan and all those that attended. And we were talking at the end about supporting each other and different things. And one of the topics that came up was encouraging working mediums to be talking together again. And I don't mean, and please, I'm not being offensive or rude, I don't mean in a gaggle, you know, slagging off the other church or whatever, you know, not in that negative way, but just actually talking as fellow co-workers, peer groups, supporting each other. And of course, we've now got this online forum where many mediums, and I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. At the moment, in the comments alone, there are 5 working mediums plus 2 here. And we're able to talk now and sort of like support each other, which I think is invaluable.
And it's something we never kind of had before because, you know, obviously being a medium can be a bit of a lonely job. You're out there, a lot of it's travel. So you're traveling to the church or the centre, you do that if you reach it, and there's not kind of any feedback afterwards. There's a cup of tea and then home again.
Yeah.
And we're left to kind of, you know, go through that. Oh, how did I do? And if we remember the actual messages and things, we kind of reflect on these and then we kind of beat ourselves up a bit from time to time. And then the things that we're going through, which we all, you know, that doubt when the head's, is it me? Is it spirit? What's going on? Oh, things are changing. This has happened, that has happened. And everybody shares. We've all had those experiences. So to be able to chat about these, I've always championed or thought about the idea of kind of a buddy scheme where, you know, you used to, I've never liked this word, but they used to use the word fledglings.
Yeah,
it never sat comfortably with me.
No,
but
I just see tall, hairy.
Yes, me too.
Just think, oh, no,
it was like, the fledglings are working. I never liked that. But, you know, that kind of buddy scheme where you are taking somebody out with you and sharing the platform. And I have done that a lot of times, and I was lucky enough to get those opportunities early on as well. But I think that does help. And then afterwards, you can have a wee chat about, well, and both can have a wee chat because you can get feedback both ways.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
And that's the great thing.
Yeah, our mediumship is never a done cake, is it?
Never.
It's always going to, if we allow it, to evolve and adapt and change. And the only way you can do that is by keep reading, keep learning, attending the odd workshop here and there, whatever. But just regard your mediumship as it's as good as it's ever going to be today, but it's not as good as it could be tomorrow.
Yep.
And take that approach with it. I like the buddy scheme thing, idea. It works. Myself, I had, over the last few years, taken people out to work with me because they're in that strange hinterland between sitting in circle and nearly there.
Yep.
But to actually take, because we really work our mediums in the UK. This has come out through our wonderful friends like Jack over in Denmark pointed this out. We really work our mediums hard in the UK. Yep. You've got to get up there, you know, and as a chairman, I love it because I go, here's Ewan, carry on.
Yep. And there is no script. There's nothing prepared. It's, as you're saying, it's right, there you go. And suddenly it's, okay, help. I always go back and think about the early days when you kind of spoke about having that wee prayer, you know, and up to spirit, and you almost promised everything. You promised the world, just get me through tonight.
Get me through tonight. I'll do anything.
I'll stop smoking, drinking. I'm gonna do, you know, whatever. And as time goes on and we do learn to trust, I always think it just really comes down to one word. When you're up on the platform, it's kind of help.
Yes, very much.
And then we take it from there. So things evolve, things change. I always think it's really good. I love just to get back to the circle once in a while.
Yeah.
Get back to the grassroots, and there's something very grounding, very stabilizing about that. And I don't know, there's something that just, I don't know, it's like coming home.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
No, I
like
get
that. It's
I do get that. But this, as I say, this age now, we have these opportunities to talk with each other and sound different ideas out. And just get things, as a church president, and I'm sure that many others in my position out there, hopefully they will agree with me, otherwise I'm just going to sound weird, but that's fine, you're used to that by now. My input really with the majority of our demonstrators, I just had 2 moments of gratitude that they actually turned up on the day, and gratitude that the service went all right and we didn't have any major mishaps. And that was it. That demonstrator would leave the church, and actually our involvement or our cross communication would be little, if any, between the visits to our churches. But now we've got this, it's just second nature now, isn't it? To hop online and do a video chat with somebody.
Yep.
It's just like, it's easier than the phone and cheaper. And we're able to talk with people and also sort of like cross-fertilize with other people. For some bizarre reason, I seem to have turned into mediums are us over the last
mediums are us.
I've been having the most strangest requests for services of mediums in the most strangest of areas. And I'm like, why is this all landing on my doorstep? But it's working. But the beautiful thing is we can talk. And it really is good to talk. We've got a couple of people here tonight who were with you today for your wonderful workshop. Jamie and Jamie Williamson. We haven't eaten the cake yet, Jamie, but it's
we will be.
It's ready. Thank you, Gaynor. I think working with an experienced medium on platform for new mediums is essential and very beneficial. Good point, Jamie.
And also for old mediums as well to work with. I mean, there's folk I'd love to work with to get that experience and just, you know, and so it's the same. I don't think it ever leaves us with that learning. It's always there, always there.
Yeah. I loved when I was taken out, there was 2 ladies I was with at the same time. That's come out wrong. You know what I mean? Professionally. I'm taking them out doing services, and I would be very attentive to what they were saying because it was a learning experience. So we need to give the feedback and whatever. But I actually learned a lot. Number one, I learned that you ladies have this remarkable gift for talking about cuts, designs, fashions. I have no idea. Ewan and I will probably just go, it's a dress.
Yes.
But a lady will say, oh, it's a so-and-so with a what's it collar and things like that. And it's all these little details that us blokes are like, what? It's a dress. Get over yourself. But also, because they were of a different generation to me, they were bringing things into their evidence. And one lady in particular, and I was really struck by it, she said, this person, the communicator, their Snapchat page is still open and people post on it. And we'll go, went, yeah. And I went, wow, that's not in my vocabulary.
Yes.
That is not in, you know, all right, I'm pretty adept online, but it's really not totally in my vocabulary. But the newer generations coming up have a different level of evidence.
Yeah, that's the thing. And we're using all sorts. I mean, Spirit does use our own experience of things. So I think if I remember back to one of the messages, you know, whoever came through, because that's the thing, you never really remember much of the messages afterwards, but whoever came through was showing me that picture of, you know, my grandmother had the twin tub.
Yes.
And I had that experience. I knew, you show me the twin tub kind of walking down the street halfway through a program. It was that experience and the comedy behind it, but that's what they used. And so it's their memories and using our experience, but we don't have that experience. It's a little bit more difficult because we've got to really, I think, listen to what they're telling us and bringing that in.
Yeah.
So it's just listening to that different vocabulary.
And I was in a congregation last night when that piece came through, and there were probably about half a dozen people sat there looking at each other going, well, what is a twin tub?
Yeah, and that's where you feel old.
Yeah,
that's where you're standing there and you're thinking, I am officially old. Mature, I like that word. You know, especially because in many ways, you know, when they come through, they're speaking about memories that were funny, important to them, important to us, what they used to do, you know. Yes, you know, going back to the twin tub, yes, a specific information from them was Tuesday was their wash day, you know, and it can be something as simple as that to something much more of something that traumatic or equally absolutely lovely happened in life. It's like having a conversation.
Yeah.
And that's the great thing. We're talking very much today about someone's journey of life and bringing through their journey from their earliest memories and our earliest memories right through to when they died, when they passed. And that's years, often years of a lot that's happened. And it's specific information. And the one thing that amazed me years and years ago was that I remember Google searching how many people were in the world. Now, it's probably changed, but I think at the time it was roughly about 9 billion, 10 billion, give a few. And I remember thinking, everybody's life story, if you were to write that down, 9, 10 billion, no two books would ever be the same.
Yeah.
That, and I just remember thinking, wow.
Yeah.
So when they come through, very often those specific memories are not what any other. See, this is the great thing about mediumship, is that specific memories to that person, not to other folk in the congregation. They might be able to relate to, like half could relate to the twin tub.
Yeah, big generational.
It's a generational.
Yeah.
But it's specific
closing on a Wednesday.
Yes, it's specific information, and then it leads to other things that happened, and the good times, the bad times.
Yeah,
it's all part of life.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
As I say, and hello, Craig. Good evening, sir. The lovely
Craig.
Risha.
Hello.
Bless her heart. Somebody's put her up to the keyboard so she can reach.
And Craig is coming up to Edinburgh, I think, in the next. Now, I could be wrong. I think it's in the next few months or next year, I think. You'll let us know.
Wonderful. Wonderful. You're in for a treat. Trust me. But don't shout obscenities out the window in the middle of the night because he just laughs at you. Anyway, moving on. The wonderful Arisha. It's a wonderful experience working with others on rostrum, and I think it's important. And yeah, I noticed that with you, Arisha, you do quite a few double dems with people, and that's nice to see mediums working together again.
And it seems it works. And the other thing, I was funny, I was talking about this to someone a couple of weeks back. People often think that a service is all planned. You know, those are the congregation between the the medium, the person doing the reading, the chairperson think, oh, there's a wee telephone call going on a few days before we plan what the read's about, so it all fits in.
Yeah.
Never happens. But somehow it all seems to fit in. There's a strand that just runs right through, a thread that runs right through, from the actual hymns to the reading, even the messages at times.
And
There
we
can be a
seem
strand.
surprised by that, but then on the other hand, we're talking about the intelligence of spirit. And we do tend to not take that in as a factor on the planning of our services. We had one service here, the guest was speaking about the hymn Amazing Grace. Guess what the hymn was?
Amazing Grace.
And it's just like, okay, this works.
You know, I was in Belfast a couple of months back, and there was the theme of the sea that just... From the hymns to the music was about the sea, to the reading was about the sea, and we just thought, you know, okay.
Yes, definitely. But as I say, with Arisha's comment there about working together. Now, down here, we used to have, there were two. They weren't couples as in together, but they were two that would work together. And one would be the philosophical medium, and one would be the evidential medium. And those services used to fly, absolutely. We had a wonderful gentleman there, Poole, and his philosophy was just wow, absolutely wow. But it does seem over the last probably 20 years, we've seen that energy drain away. I was talking today about the old school mediums.
Yes.
And one commonality, you know, we often revere the old school mediums, as we should, because there were some amazing mediums. But one side of it that's often overlooked is in their local areas, the majority, not all, because we are human, we are allowed to fall out with people. Well, actually, we are allowed to. We shouldn't. We know we shouldn't, but we are. It happens, yeah. But in the whole, the old school mediums, number one, they would sit together. And some of the stories of what used to happen in these home circles when it was like 5 or 6 mediums sat together was quite phenomenal. Number two, they would go out and socialise together. There was a bit of a healthy competition there, without involving the ego, but there was a healthy, you know, if Doris managed to levitate 6 inches, Frida would go out next week and she's going to do 7 inches.
It's got, yes. and I think it's also that case of helping folk and recommend, so they do get a chance to work on the platform, or just think, have you spoken to, or you tried so and so. And I know, you know, we're talking about Frederick, and a few of us up at the Conador Centre, we just would sit in the cafe, lovely cafe, and we would have our cup of tea, wee slice of cake. You always had to have a wee slice of cake, and we would chat about that and what was happening and supporting each other, and that's good, because you can talk about if something did go wrong, or you think, well, you know what, something's changing a bit, and I don't know what's going on here, or even bat a few ideas about, you know, it'd be good. Why don't we try this and see how it works, or never doing that again. And that's come up, never again. So it's that, and I think that's something, I think, because of COVID and we've come online, we've been able to do. And even before we were doing, a demonstration on, we would meet up, we were logging on to make sure we were there actually 20 minutes before. And we could have a wee check-in and say what's happening. And it was like a wee support network. Wee self-help group. Like the idea of the wee self-help group here. And just having a chat.
Yeah, and very much. I mean, was talking about this several months ago because it was just this thought that appeared in my head about we're not supporting our mediums. And that was in many levels, but this was one of the key elements, that we can actually talk with each other without, competition or without arrogance or without ego, and just go, do you know what, my mediumship's just gone off the wall at the moment. I don't know what's going on with me. I'm bleeding awful, but you can talk about openly because you're in that peer group.
And in that learning, those that are, looking and taking that step out to the platform and the centres, for them, how do you get that if it's not going along with someone else, or how do you get that practice?
Yeah.
So that kind of buddy type scheme where it's a good thing, and I wish there was something that you could kind of, I don't know, sign up to or something where, because in most cases you kind of got to ask someone, do you mind? No, that's fine.
Yeah. So we've got some questions. Jamie Williamson. Ewan, are there cultural differences between working in Scotland and other parts of the UK?
There are differences. The big difference I used to notice, not so much now, is that up in Scotland, philosophy, 10 minutes or so.
Yeah.
And then I was realising down here, as I say, down here, past the border, and the further down you got, philosophy was much longer.
Yeah.
That was the one thing I noticed. And even the readings were maybe a bit longer as well. The way up north, again, over the border, seems to be going direct to somebody. And then down south, it's very much, you've got the information and just making sure that you get to the person. So it might be and both work. That was something I noticed more years ago. And now I think there's a kind of merging of the two.
Yeah.
And I have noticed there's times where maybe I know roughly where I'm going, or, I've had this person with me the whole time. I do not have a clue where I'm going. Can anyone understand this information? And I know that's changed for me over the years. So I think it's kind of changed a bit. That's one of the things that I've noticed. Very much the style of mediums. The format, very much the same. So I have noticed that. The online demonstrations that I've done, that's very much changed as well, depending on what you use. So for the medium, if we're using Zoom, we're seeing the person, there you can direct.
Yeah.
If it's, for instance, StreamYard or something, it's difficult to go to a person. You've got to go with spirit and say, look, and then the messages, the chat's kind of a bit behind.
Yeah.
So it's a different way of working. So until you start, what I did notice, and I mentioned this as well, because we're talking about cultural differences, and where we speak about culture all around the world here, is that our way of expressing things. So we talk about somebody that has died. I mean, it's going to happen to all of us. Persons died. But we use these euphemisms.
Yeah.
They've passed on. It's different things like that. They passed on. They fell asleep. And you notice that in different parts of the world where the expressions change. And so I'm always aware of that here as well. And then the other things, the use of language, use of local language. And years ago, up in Inverness, I'd use the word children or a child, use the word bairns.
Yeah.
It's the bairns. What the hang is the bairns? Bairns? Children. Oh, okay.
Chinese bairns.
Yeah, and just
no.
bairn, children, bairns. And so there's things like that. And I always think that's quite interesting as well. And I was trying to think of some of the other expressions and things, but they're not coming to me. But that was something I found quite interesting as well, is being aware of the local words, the local customs. Like I was saying today, I used the word "we" the whole time.
Yes.
You know, what I'll have a wee cup of tea.
Yeah. And we were going out in the wee room.
We're going out into the.
There we go.
Yes. So you know, different sort of words that we use, and trying to get used to these as well. And you all have folk that look at you as if to say, "What is he on about?"
Yeah. Yes. And one of our Nordic friends was demonstrating, and I was listening to them work, and they were describing this link to somebody in the UK about this gentleman going to the summer house with a suitcase and food and not returning from there. Well, I knew what they meant, because in the Nordic countries, a lot of them have summer houses, so like a holiday home somewhere further south where they go for a couple of months. Of course, in the UK audience, the summer house is the shed at the bottom of the garden. So this woman sat there looking very perplexed as why Uncle Albert would go to the bottom of the garden with a suitcase and a load of food and not come back. So, the regional and cultural differences can sometimes really skew a communication.
And then if you are doing a service that would be for those in another language, and you've got an interpreter, then things can get a bit lost in translation again.
Yeah. Especially
when someone is trying to translate Scots into, I think the last one was German or something like that. It gets lost. Yeah, even into English. So that can be sometimes a little bit of fun and games here as well. And then you've got to wait until the person comes back, and it's you need to leave about 3 hours for a demonstration.
Excellent. So, Sue Townsend, change here. Ewan, when and how did your guides and inspirers begin to reveal themselves to you?
Ooh.
It's a 2-part question. Did you have any indication of their presence during childhood?
Now that's an interesting. I've never been asked for, and that's an absolute excellent question. Because if I go back to childhood, and I always say to this, I'm always absolutely honest about when I was growing up in childhood, I did not see dead people.
Yeah.
That did not happen. What did happen was a feeling. I used to get feelings of something's not quite right or something, and then something would happen, maybe in family. Walking into a room or a building and there's something. And that was what started everything off. I'm thinking back, and I don't think I have a feeling that anything would make me say I was aware of guides at an early age. It's an excellent question, because I've never thought about that. But until I look at it now, I was aware there was a kind of protection, and I felt there was something there. There was definitely something there. But I would have not at the time felt or said, "Oh, I have guides."
Yeah.
And it wasn't really until probably about the age of 18. And of course, we first join a circle and we talk about guides and things, and you're sitting there thinking, What are they?
Yeah, where?
What's a guide? Is it a guidebook? Is it a guidebook how to do something? And then very slowly you start to realise, whoa, yes. And then you start to feel almost like the energy. And for me, it was almost like someone standing behind me, and you could feel whether, almost what size they were,
Yeah.
and the energy from them, it's a male or female and everything. And then, of course, as time goes on, they start to change, and we think, oh, don't like this. This is not good. Change bad. Very, very bad. Very bad. Don't do this to me. So they kind of change. And I think at times I've probably known more than others. Some I could describe. Others I couldn't. I just know that they were there, and I knew what they were giving me. Or, for instance, the philosophy, for instance, was a good one, because I was aware just of the guide that worked with me and what they did, etc. So I have to say, even coming up to date, I know who works with me. If you were to ask me to give you their life story or a full biography of who they are, I couldn't do that.
That's interesting.
I couldn't do that.
That links in something, an experience I've had recently with my doorkeeper, and I think I need to get off my backside and talk with him. Thank you, Sue. Thank you. There's a comment here from the lovely Stefan. He's now cringing at that remark. I find it a lovely meeting those of different faiths around the world, and they have similar experiences with spirit. Muslims having links to spirit guides of Islamic faith, and Christians having similar links with their spiritual guides. It helps me to understand the oneness of humanity. That's lovely. That's lovely, Stefan. Thank you. And we look forward to seeing you at Poole tomorrow.
I'm just thinking there about that. That's an excellent thing about the oneness in humanity. And the other thing I'm thinking about from that is where, that link with spirit guides and everything, and that oneness. We're talk about, I love the subject of the whole near-death experience. And again, how similar these are throughout the world.
Yeah.
No matter what culture, there is sometimes some little differences, but it's very much, very spookily the same.
It is a great leveler. We've had a couple of discussions on NDEs and all the stories being shared. Now, we've got somebody from Florida, somebody from the UK. We've had people from further afield saying identical experiences. So there was no cultural difference. There was no faith-based difference.
Yeah. And it was
an experience.
And that experience, in almost all cases, led to that almost, there's a barrier, not a barrier, maybe that's the wrong word, but there's a line that if you go, you just know that there is no coming back.
Yeah.
And that very much features in so many of them. And I think that's really interesting as well, but it gets back to the one, I like that word, the oneness.
The oneness.
The oneness.
If you haven't copyrighted that remark, we are going to now, so too bad. Lovely Phil Shaw is saying he loves working double dems when myself and colleague are linking with the same communicator, and each of us are bringing through different aspects of their personality. Yeah, very true. And that links again. I was the observation there between a female medium and a male medium. A male medium, I'll probably pick up on character traits, smoked a lot, and things like that. The female medium will be saying, oh yeah, their style of dress was this, they were very much of that, they wore somebody said something, they wore, I can't even remember, something style shoes, and I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Could have been Wellingtons for all I know. I seriously don't know what you are referring to, but other people would understand that.
But getting back even to the experience in life, because we'll have had experiences that have really, really touched us or really changed our own lives. And when those from spirit come through and they give us their own, their experience, but how, shared experience to us, and we get it.
Yeah.
We've been through it. So I often think they use that as well. So, for instance, my father died when I was aged 18. 17, sorry, it was a young age.
Yeah.
I get that when they come through and they show me that and remind you, your father passed when you were young, and giving me that. And then, of course, we're talking about the changes between the male medium and the female medium. And, we talk about, and I remember having this conversation with a lovely friend who's a medium, and she lost her son and he was quite young. And she said, the number of those that come from spirit who lost a son or a daughter, that's because she got it. She knew, and she could give that in such a, I don't know, just such a way, empathic way, because it's back to that experience. So if there's two folk on a platform, or two folk, that's Scottish word, two wee folk. If there's two mediums on a platform, isn't it great how they're using the experience of both?
Yeah.
And bringing out different things, and it's the same person.
Yeah. But that empathic link can be incredibly strong.
Yes.
We've all had times of our lives we've experienced different things, and we know it. We know that energy.
Yep.
I've had it with people that I've dealt with. I know their energy, and then somebody about 4 or 5 years starts the same crap, and you're just looking at them going, I know this energy. I know where we're going. Different players, but I just know this energy. So come on, let's get this out of the way.
And if you had, going back, I don't know, I'm not singling out the grandmothers here, but if you had a grandmother that was just, this matriarchal, I can never say that word.
Matriarchal.
That's it. Just absolutely stern, didn't take no for an answer, ruled the family with a rod of iron. If you had that, then if someone comes through, exactly.
Oh yeah.
That person. You can, they've just got to show you that and show you that experience. That's what they are. That's what they tell me they were like.
Yeah.
And then the other information that they're given as well.
Yeah, but you've got it, because all that information is already in you. It's just like they're giving you the key for it, and you go click. Oh gosh, yeah, right.
That's
I know where we're going.
And it's almost as if, in a way, we don't have to go round the blocks to get it. They've just showed us that experience. That's it. But then all the other information comes in as well, and they're individual bits and pieces that mean, it's for the person we're giving the message to. So if they're talking about something, completely, and we're thinking, I don't know why they're mentioning this, but they're mentioning this. So, and I also think as well, and I mentioned this today as well, is that, the medium, we're up there. As I said, there is no script. And yes, we are hoping for a yes. Well, that's what we're looking for. We're bringing spirit through. They're giving the message, but still, we're up there. We want that yes. And obviously, but sometimes we don't get that yes because the person doesn't know themselves.
Yeah.
That person, I always call it a bit of homework. They've got to go away and check that. And we might never find the feedback from that. But if that person goes away and checks it and then finds that did happen, I simply think that's the greatest proof.
Yeah.
But we as the medium,
we're
oblivious to this. And that's the thing, once we do that bit, and it's back to what we were talking about earlier, that kind of self-care and everything, you've kind of got to leave it.
Know that
we've
you've
done
your
that
best.
bit.
Look yourself in the mirror and go, I have done my best.
Mhm.
I have done my best. Lovely, Arisha. Saying, trouble is these days, very often mediums are like shops in the night. What do you mean by that, Arisha? I think you mean ships.
Ships in the night, yeah.
We're like
Um,
lately. We do need the meeting up together. Yeah, it is true. It really is beneficial for us. You know, if we can put aside the ego and the negative emotions and just talk with each other, it really does help. Because number one, you come away sometimes thinking, thank God I thought I was nuts because I was picking this up and they're saying exactly the same thing. And you think, thank you. Thank you.
And again, it's the shared experience of what we do go through on that journey of mediumship, which can often be quite lonely as well.
So today, your development is a lone path, but it need not be lonely. It's but we just through habit, I think we've become lonely because we just stop talking to each other. The actual journey, the actual progress is as an individual to each and every one of us, as you were saying earlier on, however many billion people. So that part is the lone part. And yes, it can be very lonely because we've fallen out of this thought process to call up somebody. And as I said, nowadays, it's so easy to get somebody on a video chat.
Yep. And there is that, I know we talk about, there is the ego does come into it. And I've seen going back where it's all about, I've got 12 churches booked this year, or I've got 15, I've got 20. And I always remember, and I'm always honest about this, that happened because it was a big, big wake-up call to me. And years ago, I remember doing a church and take a demonstration. And I'm going to say this, it was a fantastic night. And I came away thinking, whoa, you know how you...
Yeah.
Oh, this was good. This was good.
Worked.
Yeah, this worked. Brilliant. Yeah, next one. A week later, I went to a church. Now, you can imagine halfway through, it got so bad. I'm perspiring. I just wanted a hole to open up and swallow me. No one could take anything. And I went away and I remember just sending that wee thought up and saying, what happened? And as clear as day, this voice came back and said, son, you got too big for your boots.
Yeah.
Ouch.
I've seen demonstrators taken down one way or another, not by other people, by circumstances.
I mean, I cannot describe how bad that night was. It was awful. But it taught me that lesson early on, and I've never, ever forgotten it. It was that just when that voice, son, you got too big for your boots. Okay, ouch.
Okay. The lovely Moira Dwyer. Hello, my dear. How are you? And she's saying, good evening. Wondering if you have received an excellent message from a medium that was profound, and if you could talk about why it was so meaningful.
I would go back to the very first message I ever got, because it's the one I remember. And this gets back to where if there's something you don't know until you verify it later, even if it's a long time later. And I'll tell the story and make it quite brief, but I remember going to a medium and she said, I have a gentleman here and his name's John. That was my father's name. And I'm sitting there, age 18, 19. I'm sitting there like this. Yes, that's my father's name, but common name?
Yeah.
What else have you got? And she said, he's pointing up here, but it's not his heart. Well, my father died from breast cancer, so I'm starting to get a bit more, okay. And there was various things she mentioned, and I always remember her mentioning one particular thing, and she said, I've got your aunt here, and she used to call herself a little bit of a witch, and she used to dabble. And I remember saying to my mother said, I'm really not too sure. I think there was maybe an aunt who used to do the tea leaves, she said, but I'm not 100% sure. So I remember thinking, okay, it was like, when we say, can you hold something?
Yeah.
I held this. Years later, when my aunt died and we were clearing out the house, hidden in a cupboard was the 1934 book of fortune telling and other things. And I just thought that was years later that proof came from that message.
Yeah.
And that was very, I go back to the first message I got. I'm thinking, okay. So that was very, very for me, a message received was very, very meaningful. There has been, there's been others and different things. I remember when my mother was alive as well. My mother used to come round with me, but she used to go to Spitz Church and would often get a message as well. And again, listening to that and her mother coming through with different little things and about her. And there's the funny experience as well, because I remember my grandmother coming through and talking about her hair and her shock of her hair before she passed. And I remember rolling about a bit laughing because my grandmother wanted her hair done and my mother arranged this, but it wasn't, of course, her usual hairdresser. Oh no, we couldn't get a usual hairdresser. And they cut my grandmother's hair too short. And I have to say, she was in shock for about 2 weeks over this. So it's sometimes even these wee funny things that come through that are so memorable.
Right.
And I think I remember my mother saying afterwards, she said, going back, I wish I had just persevered and got the proper hairdresser.
Right.
But we'll all have had that message that hopefully has been that meaningful one that,
they're the ones we still remember.
It's
we
a memorable
recall
one.
every detail of it because it made that much. My one was my mother and father passed very close together, and Dad was the minister of the church. So after Mum went, then Dad went, as I say, within weeks of Mum going. Afterwards, every service I sat in, and I'm not being rude or disrespectful, it was all the local mediums. They all knew me mum and dad. They all knew the story. And every service I had, I've got your mother here or I've got your father here and they love you very much. And to the point of, I was just thinking, please stop doing this because I'm still adjusting. And I'll be hand on heart, we look for the evidence within a message, and that was probably missing out of 99% of them. One gentleman, he didn't know me. He had not met me. And he came to me and he went, got a gentleman here, and he said, something weird going on. He's a very straight talking guy. He said, something weird going on. He said, because he stood behind me talking, and I don't know why. Anyway, I'll give you what I've got. And he started to go into detail, and I thought, that sounds very much like my father. And then he went, he's got 5 medals here, and he's saluting you. And that was the cinching piece of evidence. My father's medals, the name's been left to me. I have no progeny. Not my cat wouldn't be wearing them, so not my cat as well, folks. The eldest brother, he said, well, I've got 2 daughters, they're not going to take them. There was an issue with another family member, because I knew my dad would never sell the medals, and he would never, ever sell them. So I managed to find his regiment's museum up in Newcastle. And I was talking to the chap on the phone, and there was these coincidences. He went, "What's your father's name?" I said, "Staff Sergeant Saville." And he went, "If you walk into this museum, there is a photo on the pillar in the middle of the room of your father with 12," and I said, "Saladins in front of him with whatever troop written on the blackboard." He went, "How do you know that?" I said, "Because that picture is on my lap." So that was my dad going, "Yes, well done." But when that medium brought that through, I just went, because nobody knew that. Nobody knew that. And after that piece of information had been given, the medium then said, "Oh, hang on, he's moving round. Oh, it's Joe. Oh, well, you must be Lawrence then." And that's why my dad was working behind him. You know, and I was just like, wow. Absolutely wow.
It is when you get that, you know, you can call them that gem of evidence that just, it's like, what?
Yeah.
And there is no doubt whatsoever.
Oh, yeah, the little gem moment last night with the pine tree.
Oh, right, yeah.
The pine tree and the link between the communicator and the sitter. And it's like, "But I want to bring you both in." Yeah, we planted that tree together. How beautiful.
It's these wee bits, and it's just bringing through what they want to bring through. Because we did talk today very much about when the logical side comes in of us as a medium as well. It's like, you know, the mind is a very powerful thing, and sometimes just for that split second comes in and wants to change things.
Yeah.
You know, if only we could.
And you go, "I've got a cod." No, you haven't.
Yeah.
You've got a fish.
If only we could take the mind out while we're doing the mediumship, I think it would be great. But
so, Jamie Williamson.
Jamie.
Mediumship requires lifelong learning. It is a shame that not all mediums seem to recognise this. How do we encourage this personal development?
I have heard, and I have to be honest, there are those that have had messages that have said, you know, almost like the first or the second time they've been to a church or a centre and told, "Okay, you have that mediumship gift." And within 2 weeks, the website's up, the cards are done. And without, you know, it can take quite a while. And you're working with, I mean, they kind of decide. And they want to give us, we hold ourselves back, okay? They're trying to give us this push, but when we're ready. That's the thing.
I think where Jamie's coming from there, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jamie, is talking about mediums who are now engaged on working on the platform, irrespective of how long they've been doing it. And this probably ties into a conversation we had today in the workshop about, you know, my mediumship is as good as it's going to be today, but not as good as it could be tomorrow if I push myself, learn, read, continue reading, continue, you know, not, I'm a medium, I'm getting bookings, happy days, that's it. Because I've done it myself. I've stood there and worked, and I'm giving messages out and thinking, I must have worked with this person before because it's the same stuff. And I've said to them, "Have I worked with you before?" "No." And I'm like, why am I getting the same stuff? And then a very good friend who's in here tonight from lovely Denmark, the lovely Jack, said the reason is because you've let your mediumship plateau and you're not pushing it on. And that's why you're getting the same. And I'm like, oh my God, that is so... it's just so logical.
Yep. And if we take that journey, because they want us to progress and go on. I don't know why I keep looking up at the ceiling tonight whenever I say they.
It's the upstairs,
but it's the upstairs day, you know. But they want us to progress. And yeah, it's kind of an opening. I know I'm talking about the mind and the mind comes into it, but opening our mind to new things and to new ideas, and that even getting back to what we're talking about at the beginning, that way of working, because the start of COVID, prior to that, I had never worked on Zoom before. This was a whole new learning experience, and possibly for Spirit as well.
Yeah.
This is new to them. But if we hadn't done it, I don't know, things would have been different. That's part of the learning and moving on as well. And it's just kind of opening up to new ideas and new ways and getting out that comfort box. It's us that puts ourselves into it.
Yeah.
We're guilty of that box ourselves. But if we just take that wee step out and just trust, and I know, we speak about trust and the fears we have and everything, but if we can just have that little bit of trust, I think it's a good road ahead.
Oh, very much.
Good
very
road
much.
ahead.
Potential is there. And Jamie says, how do we encourage personal development? Well, the thing is, as tutors, a good tutor, to me, in my book, a good tutor will open the door for me, but I'm the one actually that's got to ask for that door to be opened. So it's got to start with me.
And the tutoring as well, or courses, it may just bring up an idea. We're not looking for folk to become carbon copies of another medium.
Yeah.
That's just no.
Yes.
But take these wee ideas, and I've done it myself, and used it, and maybe worked with it. And some things have worked out, and other things haven't. But I would like to think it's helped me. And as time goes on, there'll be something else will just come in that might just take it that wee bit different. Is that a word? Just a wee bit different.
I've been so fortunate talking to some amazing people over the last few years. And in those conversations, both on screen and online, but off screen, different ideas, different thought. Have you tried this? Have you done that? Or whatever. And I've tried loads of things with my mediumship, and some have been brilliant, some have been oops.
And you think, no, I'm never doing that again.
Yeah, oops a daisy, that's obviously not in my repertoire. But it has changed my mediumship. And it has changed the way I work, it's changed the conditions I work under, because I was then open to that change. And I think pre-COVID, outside of where we have Stansted, we have Martin Coldclough. What does he run?
I know, I can't think of the...
Yeah, Martin Coldclough's organisation, obviously in Scotland, the Arthur Conan Doyle Centre. Then in the Midlands,
you have the Stafford Centre.
But that was about it. That were the opportunities.
But there is
to further yourself, and it was very limited.
And again, we get back to our days of Zoom, where you're having a circle or you're having a course, and there are those, let's face it, rural parts of England, Scotland, and the world that cannot get to a church or a centre that could start to take part. And that's been an excellent, and I don't think we'll get away from that. I think it's very much Zoom, and we're talking about kind of hybrids, that word hybrid events.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be a lot to do with the future as well.
Yeah.
And it kind of brings me back to something we were talking about, self-care, because I always found that doing a church afterwards, yes, you got a nice wee chat and you got a lovely wee cup of tea in most churches, and then you would head down the road. And for me, that driving was a kind of a bit of a wind down, and I was concentrating on my driving. What I found a difference was Zoom. I was just as soon as it finished, that was it. It was like, oh, okay. and all I'm doing is changing out my shirt and tie, because let's face it, Zoom, you were wearing joggies and trainers, and you didn't have to. And that was the whole thing after Zoom,
That was on a
after
good day,
COVID.
yes,
Yep, after COVID. And of course, going back into church and putting that suit on for the first time, thinking,
And
I don't
shoes.
fit, and the shoes.
Shoes.
I
My
don't fit
first
shoes. Yeah.
service, I was walking like
Uh-huh.
I've lost my horse.
Yeah.
God, my feet are killing me.
And we got used to it. But in all seriousness, when you kind of just closed down Zoom, it was like, okay, I found it difficult, because how do you wind? Where was that winding down?
Yeah.
It wasn't the same. So I had to kind of learn that and maybe do something different. So that was an interesting time.
Yeah.
Usually it was still a cup of tea, but I was making it myself. So that can it's all part of the learning experience.
Yeah. Lovely, Stefan. Bit of a strange one, this. Is this self-referral, Stefan? A bit of a strange one, this. However, what is Ewan's thoughts on ghosts, residual energy, and spirit world? Can the two ever mix? Reason he's asking, I know a lot of mediums who go on ghost hunts and try to link in with them. I've been invited to experiment on a ghost hunt. Other than my mediumship, I know very little on reaching out as such to residual energies.
Okay. This is my thoughts, and my thoughts on the whole, let's call it the paranormal side.
Yeah.
And I've loved that over the years. We have our loved ones and those in spirit that from up there will follow us through life. I often say they can be quite nosy, but so would I be if I head up there. I want to know what's happening down in the family. I'll follow them. And I want to have a wee check on what's happening, who's in my house now, what's going on, things like that. So when we look at a location or an old place or a haunted place, I feel there are those that will come back for that visit because it was part of where they stayed, where they worked, it was where they grew up. So like we are contacting them or they're coming forward with their message for that person, again, it's similar. We're kind of bringing their memories and their little bit through for the place. So folk can often say, oh, but are they haunting the place the whole time? I think, no. No. It's just that we are that connection where they, we're asking just who was part of this place to come through. And then, of course, you have where there's examples. So, for instance, we look at York, and I think it's a treasurer's house, where there's kind of this residual energy. There's this repeat performance of the soldiers marching through, and only half of them are there because it was then proven that the road was further down. So you have that residual energy that's kind of soaked up in the walls, and I always struggle to get my head around the whole. It's like a magnetic tape or something for those that remember tapes. Is it something like that? And I've always struggled to get my head around all that. But we have that. And then there are those that talk about someone haunting a place the whole time. Again, I have difficulty getting my head around that. We talk about people stuck. Stuck. Yes. They're stuck here. And I just think, I'm not too sure they're stuck. I think it's very much because it was part of where they were. They're coming back in a way, coming through. And it is like the mediumship. They're making that connection. Why can't they do it in a place where they worked or lived and you're in it at the time? Yeah. I don't know if that kind of answers the question or not.
Not really.
No, it was a question.
I think on a very simplistic level, that you have the difference then between the psychic residue, and I like the magnetic tape because the VHS tape works by transferring different magnetic images, resonances onto it. And we talk about psychism and being a magnetic resonance. So yeah, why can't the wall act like a VHS tape? So I think when you have these repetitive memes going on, like the half soldiers marching through, one of the commoner ones is sort of like monks and nuns.
Yeah.
Well, if you
a white lady or a grey lady.
Yes,
that's the other one. It's always a white lady or a grey lady.
Yeah. But these images, they're born of intent and dedication. The monks would walk up that path every day at 2 minutes to 12 to ring the bell.
Yep.
And their whole intent and whole focus. So yeah, they're going to leave
a footprint. I was going to say that footprint, that residual energy. Quite how it's contained or kept or replayed, I'm not too sure. But it is.
We can do it, can't we? We can walk into somewhere and go, okay, who's had the row?
Yep. And a lot of folk can walk into a place and see exactly how it was 200 years ago.
Yeah.
Down to the furniture and everything.
Yeah. But then the spirit side is we're dealing with intelligence. If you've got, so Stefan, if you go into a place and you just keep having round and back, so is there anybody there? Once for yes, twice for no. If nothing happens, or 10 minutes later you get the random bang, there's not big sign of intelligence at work there. But if you said one for yes, twice for no, is there anybody there? Oh, okay. I'm now having a conversation, so therefore I'm into an intelligence mode.
And then the person that's doing the research afterwards, to actually, if there's a story or to go into from that intelligence as you get more information about them, when that research is done, to then prove or disprove what the medium has said as well. That's a fantastic thing.
Yeah. So I hope that helped, young Stefan. Where are we? Hello, Francis. How are you, darling? Keith Morn. I've not pronounced that correctly. I do apologise. What are your thoughts on table tipping and provocative and antagonistic attempts to get a response from spirit?
Yes, that is one, because it does come back to yes. We have investigations, and there are people there on the investigation, and sometimes public, who expect something.
Yeah.
We're not leaving. We paid good money for this. We're not leaving without something.
$50. I want to show.
Yep. Yeah. And it's explaining to someone at the beginning, look, we may get nothing. This is part of the deal, or we may get something. And yes, I've seen in many ways where if someone's not getting a response, they're saying, look, anybody there knock once? Okay, there's nothing. And then nothing. Look, okay, if you don't want to play tonight, that's fine with us.
Yeah.
And then there's that, and it's like, okay. And taking things from there. It can be very, very interesting. Table tipping, I've done it. I've seen it done. I find that actually quite fascinating.
Yeah.
But equally, I found times where that table has not moved a millimetre. I've seen times where we put the objects out in a locked room and we've drawn the mark round them and they've not moved. And I've seen other times where they have moved.
Yeah.
You just don't know. They will let us know. But I think it's very much, it's kind of done because people, as we say, they paid good money.
Yeah, and they want to show.
We want a show.
Yeah.
And we have to remember as well is that, the programs that we've seen, and I've been part of them, the programs is filmed over a long period. Filmed. Is that a word now again?
Oh, it is.
Filmed.
Very nice word.
Filmed. It's recorded. I don't know. What's the word I'm looking for here? Filmed. Filmed often over many hours to condense down to 20, 25 minutes. So what you've got over the space of 8 hours looks really good when you look over 20 minutes. In reality, when you are stuck down in a damp, dark place and it gets to 5, 6 in the morning thinking, I just want bed. It's not that fun. And over that course of the night, you may have got a few things which put together looks really good. You may have got nothing.
Was that when you see who was the first TV medium I saw was James Edwards. And so he was on for an hour. So if you take out the ads, he was on for 45 minutes. If you take out the discussions, he was actually demonstrating probably for about 15 minutes. And it was amazing because everything was yes, and it was this astounding evidence, and really poignant and emotive things. And then you actually take into consideration those messages were excerpts from about an umpteen number of shows where they have selected the speciality bits. But you just get it in a bite-sized lump, and you just think this guy is rattling off this all the time.
And this is what we're certainly expecting this.
Yeah. But with the paranormal side, and this leaches across nicely into current discussions regarding certain physical mediums. Do you know what? Every single one of us does exactly the same damn mistake. When we're talking about physical mediumship, I'm going to put a dem on tonight, a physical mediumship, I'm going to have X amount of people and charge Y amount of pounds and all that. What does Spirit say about this? What does the key component and the intelligence of Spirit think about this? Have they worked with you and honed that skill to make you turn their work into, at best, a circus and at worst, a mockery? And this is why we see time and time again, when we see these physical mediums being outed for cheating, I don't deny that they had something, but then it just got abused.
But then we get back to when you look at the history of spiritualism, when it was very about the physical mediumship, because you had to see it. In those days, mental mediumship, you could be put away for it.
Some could be today.
Some could still today be put away. But you could, so it's very much you had to see it, but you could start to see what happened, talking about the levitation, somebody levitated a foot that week. The next one has got to be more. We've got to levitate 2 feet. We're getting all these rappings and tappings, but next week, we've got to have it louder and better. And so it kind of went up. And I kind of often wondered what point Spirit said, I've had enough.
Well, I think it's the core intent. I mean, very fortunate to have been gifted a selection of audio cassettes from Leslie Flint's direct voice. And that you can understand it from both sides of the veil. This circle sat together for years to get that vibration right for their medium. The same on Spirit side to get their vibration to work through Leslie. And they would invite a few people in, but it most certainly wasn't a show. It most certainly wasn't, next week we're going on Broadway with it. It was an earnest investigation and discussion between the etheric world and our world. And you can understand that
Yeah.
energy and how it flowed and how it worked, and the fact, the conditions in which these messages came over. Amazing. You know, the guy sat there with his mouth taped shut and there are voices. And that is amazing. But the whole intent of it was Spirit Side knew and understood and gave their permission for it all to be recorded, for people like me to be listening to 30, 40, 50 years later and going, wow.
Yep.
Wow.
That's absolutely. And even I think the proof for me in sitting in a physical circle, you know, is just that feeling of the energy. And for me, that's, you know, for me, that is more powerful than, I don't know, seeing there's an object that suddenly appeared or something like that, or, you know, whatever. A voice, which we're all wanting. It's that feeling, it's the energy. And that's the difference, I think, between the normal type of mediumship circle and, okay, let's look at the red light physical circle. It's the energy, it's the power.
Yeah.
And as that builds up and builds up over the weeks and the months, that is something else.
Yeah.
Something else.
And when you're in that presence, it is amazing. But as I said, you know, and I know every medium's got a way of living. Absolutely. But I think when some of these things roll out into this huge booked ahead for 3 years schedule, along the line, the spirit is getting left out. And if you leave spirit out of it, guess what? You either give up or resort to, which is a shame.
And I think that's a good point, is remembering that they're the ones that do it.
Yeah, they're the ones doing it. Why are they doing it? Are they doing it to make you famous? I really sincerely don't think that is.
What was it? We were talking about something today about the director, the actor, and the audience. Spirit of the director. We're just acting what they're giving us to the audience. But the director without the director.
Yeah. Anyway, Ewan, lovely night.
It's that flew by.
It has. It's gone very
quickly.
Thank you, not my cat.
Even the cat has stayed.
Yeah.
just in the middle of the demonstration last night, I think I made a wee comment beforehand about, well, if the cat walks out,
that's it.
And halfway through, the cat just looked and walked out, and I thought, oh, okay.
Flounced off up the aisle and yelled at the door to be let out.
Not even a backwards glance. It's just straight out. I thought, okay. But she has stayed tonight.
She has. It's probably something to do with the food she's eating. Anyway, everybody, sorry we haven't got around all the questions here. We've both been working all day long. You can go now. So, yeah, we've got a well-deserved 5 minutes before we've got the service tomorrow.
Before the service tomorrow.
Ewan, before we go, I keep meaning to ask this. Your book.
Yes. I always said I had a fascination with the paranormal and things. And so very quickly, a couple of festival fringes ago, I did a talk, and it was called Tales of the Condemned, and it was trying to bring the human face of those accused of witchcraft. And I really enjoyed looking at that. And I took it on. And although I've included some of the stories of that, I have then looked at those that would have been considered the wizards and the witches and the spells of Scotland. So even just very quickly, one of the wee stories was about a lovely lady, Bessie. And of course, the fishermen in the islands of Scotland, they would always want favourable winds. You know, favourable winds would keep their boats safely sailing. And they would go to her, and for sixpence, she would grant them favourable winds. And then we've got the story of Agnes Finney, who was the most prolific witch in Scotland, who strangely stayed in Edinburgh. and the Great Borders Wizard, and a thing about the Devil's Pulpit, and just these wee stories there. So bring that in. So it's called Witches, Wizards, and Spells of Scotland. Available in Kindle and paperback on Amazon. How's that for self-publicity at the end?
No. I was fascinated. I love books like that. And I hadn't mentioned it to you at all, and it just.
And I hope it's a nice wee read, I've made it so that it's all ages can read it, and it brings in a little bit of the humour as well here. But it's the stories, and as I always say, all these stories, they're based on grains of truth.
Yeah.
They might have been embellished a bit over the years, but at the end of the day, something started it. And these poor people, that got burnt at the stake for what they did, but remembering there was a human, there was a person, there was somebody's mum, gran, daughter, but because of that, what we just said up there, that gift of second sight, which was used, could bring fear. And one of the stories actually mentions that, for instance, they would go to one woman whenever they thought something was wrong, because she would tell them if they had reason to. And then as time goes on, they actually turn on her, because whereas magic and spells could help, they also knew it could cause fear and it could cause harm. So there's a mix there, and it's interesting how some of the stories kind of change.
It was like the Salem witch trials. A lot of that was down to because of the founding fathers going out there. So the big male influence, the male is the dominant, the village elders were all male. And of course the herbalists or the midwives and the skilled at making people feel better suddenly became a bit of a threat to their power base. So that's quoting the lovely Monty Python, she's a witch!
And it all, and a lot of it was just the simple gossip of a neighbour could spread like wildfire. If you took a dislike to someone, rumours can start and circulate round us.
Let's try that.
A town
as a mass.
Or a village. And then, that person gets blamed for everything. I mean, one of the wee stories is about wee story. But for instance, there's a lady who's accused of witchcraft, but it's seen that she's looking at a cow in a field, and the cow, probably for natural causes, keels over and dies. It's not, according to all the locals, any natural cause. Her very stare caused this cow to keel over and die. And it just adds to the weight of all the stories. And fear spreads. And that person's accused. And very often it results, I mean, crikey, it's harsh punishment, burnt at the stake, hung. It was not pleasant. We look at kind of history and the whole thing about torture, and again it gets back to, when we're talking about mental mediumship, we would have been accused of witchcraft probably not that long ago.
True.
And I'm glad things have changed.
Anyway, Ewan, this is like one of your messages.
It's one of my messages. It's never going to end.
Ewan, thank you. Thank you, everybody out there watching tonight. Those watching on catch up later on, you are welcome. Have a beautiful, wonderful evening. Don't forget, Ewan is here live tomorrow at Poole Church. He'll be.
I hope I'm live.
Well, you haven't eaten any
no.
today, have you?
I had the quiche.
You had
that was lovely, I had the quiche.
At least on life support, you will be here tomorrow.
See what I can do.
Shut up. At 11 o'clock, taking our divine service. So if you're in the area, we'd love to see you. Also, you can watch this live on YouTube and our Facebook page. So, yeah, something to look forward to. Don't forget Ewan's book again, the title.
I have to think there, Wizards, Witches, or Witches, Wizards, Spells of Scotland.
Witches, Wizards,
Spells of Scotland. Or just search my name on Amazon.
Yeah, don't do it on Google.
Don't do it on Google. Don't do it on Google. Yeah. And then it should come up there. And it's a nice wee story.
Yeah, lovely, lovely. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you for your company. Have a good time. We shall see you all.